I'm Laura Jacob, registered dietitian with Christie Clinic, and I'm here at the Common Ground Food Co-op cooking classroom. And today I'm going to be talking about tomatoes. There's lots of different kind of tomatoes. The ones that we have here are Roma or plum tomatoes, and then we have some slicing tomatoes. And you can see that they come in all different sizes, shapes, and colors. And they come in, and tomatoes kind of vary from sweet to acidic, and so lots of flavors as well. Also have some cherry tomatoes over here, which are sweet. They come in a lot of different colors. So you've got your normal red tomatoes, you've got yellow tomatoes, you've got some green tomatoes, or very, very variegated tomatoes, I guess you could say. These are striped, these are zebra tomatoes. And so they're supposed to be this green stripy color. They're actually ripe. Sometimes you do get those green tomatoes that aren't ripe yet, and you can let them ripen, or you can use them for other things. Tomatoes also come in pink, black, purple, all kinds of white colors like that. So there's a lot of different varieties. The plum tomatoes, like these are Roma tomatoes, which is a type of a plum tomato. These are a meatier tomato that they have less seeds, and these are usually used for roasting or making sauce. These are slicing tomatoes, so more often eaten raw, like on a sandwich or in a salad or something like that, which are very tasty. And then your cherry tomatoes, you can just pop them in your mouth, or you can put them in a salad or cut them up. So lots of good stuff. As far as choosing tomatoes, you want to choose nice plump tomatoes that have a mostly glossy skin, which all of these are like that. The ones you get at the big stores often are the very sort of perfect looking tomatoes, but sometimes you get ones that look a little imperfect, like this one here, the stem end. Sometimes you'll see cracks kind of radiating out from the stem end, or maybe a little bottom end kind of dry brownness here. To me, sometimes these tomatoes taste better. You can cut off the brown stuff, you can cut around the cracks, but they might have a lot better flavor. Heirloom tomatoes come in a lot of different shapes, and they might not be your traditional round, plump, smooth tomato. They might have a lot of bumps and ridges, and even sometimes are very misshapen, but they're also very good. Short-term storage, if they're ripe like these, you don't want to wash them until you're ready to use them, because then they go bad more quickly, but you don't want to refrigerate them either. So if you're going to be able, you want to try to use them within a couple of days and just leave them at room temperature out of the sun. If you put them in the refrigerator, that's fine, but it's going to change the texture and it's going to change the flavor, and you might have to just use those for sauce or something like that. You can also freeze tomatoes, or you can can them. You can if you've made your plum tomatoes into sauce, or you can can them or freeze them, and those will be good as well. So you want to just, for preparation, you just want to, when you're ready to prepare them, wash them, cut out the tough stem, maybe cut off some of the imperfect areas, and then they're ready to go. For sauce tomatoes like this, you would actually want to peel them, and there's a special way of doing that. So you would cut an X in the bottom, just fairly shallowly. You would drop them into boiling water for about 30 seconds, and that loosens up the skin. First, you want to, once they've boiled, then you drop them into an ice water bath for just a little bit, and then that makes it really easy to peel, and then you can just cook them and make your sauce. The skin doesn't necessarily soften, so you don't want the skin in your sauce. So if you do have some tomatoes that are underripe, they're too firm, or they just, really haven't, if they're supposed to be red and they're still kind of green, you can put them in a paper bag for a couple of days. Just close up the paper bag at room temperature, and then you just check every day to see where they're at as far as ripeness goes. Most tomatoes will continue to ripen after they're picked, so that's a good thing. If they're overripe, again, you will want to maybe use them in a sauce or something like that. So today I'm going to make fresh roasted tomato pizza, since we're roasting them, I'm going to use Roma tomatoes because these are good roasted. They're not super juicy, they're more meaty. And I'm just going to wash them. They're already washed. Cut off that stem. There's not a lot of stem on these, so you don't have to cut off a lot. And then I'm going to slice them. You could slice them lengthwise, or you could slice them crossways. I'm going to slice them crossways, and gonna toss them with a little oil, and I'm gonna put them on a pan and roast them. 350 degree oven for 15-20 minutes until they look a little bit roasty and caramely. They're gonna shrink up some in there, so you want a fairly thick slice, so maybe 1/2 inch. And they're gonna get nice and soft, and the roasting is gonna really concentrate the flavors. So your pizza doesn't need a lot of other flavors on it. It doesn't need to be heavily coated in cheese or spices, because most of your flavor with this pizza is gonna come from the tomatoes, the delicious concentrated flavor of tomatoes. I'm just gonna use a pre-made pizza crust because that's really handy, but you can make your own crust. I would pre-bake it a little bit with rubbed with a little bit of olive oil. Pre-bake it till it's a little bit crispy if you're using your own crust. And then you'll put your tomatoes on there, and then you'll put a little Parmesan, some basil, some fresh basil, or you can use dried as well if you don't have fresh basil. But first we need to roast our tomatoes. So I've got my pan ready here. I like to use parchment paper just to kind of keep the pan clean. So I've got my tomatoes sliced up, and I'm gonna put them in a bowl and toss them with a little bit of olive oil and maybe a little bit of sea salt or some dried herbs. Don't go too heavy on it though, because remember that the flavor here is going to be from the tomatoes. Just a wee bit of sea salt. Don't want to go too heavy on that. And then I think I'll put a little bit of dried oregano. Dried herbs are much more of a concentrated flavor, so you don't want to overdo that. Much more concentrated than fresh. So I'm just gonna place the tomatoes in a single layer on the sheet and roast them in a 350 degree preheated oven. 15 to 30 minutes, just keep an eye on them so that they don't get overcooked. They're gonna get nice and soft, and that's what you want. And they're ready to go into the oven. And then we'll see how lovely, and they're gonna smell delicious while they're in there. So our roasted Roma tomatoes are all done and nice and soft and caramely and a little bit charred looking, and they're nice and concentrated flavors. It's gonna be delicious. So now we wanna assemble our pizza. So we're gonna put I love fresh basil. It tastes so delicious on a pizza, and it's not gonna overpower the tomato flavor. So I'm just gonna cut up some strips of fresh basil. You can use dried basil if you want as well, but it's so delicious. I highly recommend growing your own basil, because then you can kind of harvest it and it'll continue to grow more, which is kind of keeps on giving. So just some strips. I like it to be in strips on my pizza. And that kind of releases some of the flavor of the basil too when you cut it. So there's that, that's ready to go. We've got a pizza crust here, a ready-made pizza crust. And I'm just gonna kind of wipe it with some olive oil, just to kind of help everything meld together. So, nice heart-healthy oil. So I'm just gonna brush it on, get that outer crust so it gets nice and crispy. Doesn't have to be 100% covered, probably is better if it's not 100% covered. So I'm gonna go ahead and put on the tomatoes. And I really have enough here for, you don't wanna overdo it either. I have enough here for probably 2 or 3 pizzas, 2 or 3 of these little small pizzas. So that looks about right, I think. And then I'm gonna put on some of this nice sliced up fresh basil. Kind of spread that around, not too heavy, because we don't wanna overpower our tomatoes. And then actually just Parmesan cheese, just a sprinkle cheese on this. It does not need to be completely coated in a creamy cheese. This is it's pretty strongly flavored, so don't overdo it. So just kind of sprinkle that on there. Perfect. And then it goes in the oven for 15 minutes, 8 to 10 minutes probably. Check it and then see if everything's all melty and hot. And if not, you may need a few more minutes, but it should be ready to eat then. So here's our pizza, came out of the oven, nice and browned and melty and ready to go. Doesn't it look delicious? Thank you for watching. I'm Laura Jacob, registered dietitian at Christie Clinic, and hope to see you again.